I know in these moments I set the Spirit of God to do what He loves doing, and nothing better than having chatting people with plenty to talk about what God's doing in their lives, right? Because He is. That's what He does best in our lives. And I can do a survey of your week, and I can guarantee it was pretty ordinary and pretty similar to the week before, with its doses of some different things. And that's where God's working. And I'm about to read the next part of Ruth 2, and guess what? It's pretty ordinary, and that's where God's working too. That's where God loves to work. That's where He comes alive amongst His ordinary people doing extraordinary things for His glory. I don't know whether people like spoiler alerts, people telling you the plot of movies or the ending of the stories before you've read a book, or whether you watch a movie and you're like, don't tell me. Well, the author of Ruth, whoever it was, doesn't mind giving spoiler alerts, because that's not his concern. He's more than happy to tell you how the story ends. He's more than happy to tell you that Boaz and Ruth, you don't need to get to chapter 4, guys. Guess what? Boaz, he's the man. He's the kinsman redeemer. It's coming. The reason he reveals it is because you may think that is the revelation of what is the story. But he wants you to be drawn into something far greater. Something where you marvel at the fact that you think you know God, and then He does this and you go, I just stand in awe. So let's read chapter 2, this incredible, beautiful story. Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side from the clan of Elimelech, a man of standing, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favour. Naomi said to her, go ahead, my daughter. So she went out and began to glean in the fields behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz. Who was in the clan of Elimelech. Just then Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted his harvesters. The Lord be with you. And the people said, remember being part of church back in the 1980s? It's beautiful, but it had its season. The Lord bless you. They called back. Boaz asked the foreman in the harvest, whose young woman is this? The foreman replied, she is the Moabitess who has come back from Moab with Naomi. She said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters. She went into the field and has worked steadily from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter. So Boaz said to Ruth, my daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with my servant girls. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the girls. I have told the men, do not touch you. Wherever you are thirsty, go and drink from the water, from the jars the men have filled. At this she bowed down with her face to the ground. She exclaimed, why have I found such favour in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner? Boaz replied, I have been told about what you have done for your mother-in-law. Since the death of your husband, how you have left your father and mother and your home and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. May I continue to find favour in your eyes, my Lord, she said. You have given me comfort and have spoken kindly to your servant, though I have not have the standing of one of your servant girls." At mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here, have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar." When she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain. She ate all she wanted and had some left over. As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men, "Even if she gathers among the sheaves, don't embarrass her. Rather, pull out some of the stalks for her from the bundles and leave it for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her." So Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. Then she threshed the barley she had gathered, and it amounted to an ephah. And she carried it back to town. And her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she had eaten enough. Her mother-in-law asked her, "Where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed is the man who took notice of you." Then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one whose place she had been working. The name of the man I worked with today was Boaz. "The Lord bless him," Naomi said to her daughter-in-law. "He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead." She added, that man is a close relative. He is one of our kinsman redeemers." Then Ruth the Moabite said, "He even said to me, 'Stay with my workers until they finish harvesting all my grain.'" Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It is good for you, my daughter, to go with the girls, because in someone else's field you might be harmed." So Ruth stayed close to the servant girls of Boaz to glean until the barley and wheat harvest had finished, and she lived with her mother-in-law. There's a couple of weeks in this, I recognise that. So today I want to ask us 3 really simple questions that we can answer really quickly. These are, what is God doing in his story? Do I have a choice in his story? If I have a choice, what then should I do with what's in front of me? Just those simple questions of life, right? We'll square this away and then we'll go out, all problems solved, right? We'll try. And my encouragement is this is an ongoing reality and questions that we all sit in, we all wrestle with. We all must come back to the mercy and grace and sovereignty of God and also understand his great mysteries. We are but children. I stood at 5 to 9 this morning down at the ocean, and a picture came to me this. Sometimes we hold in our hands the water of the ocean and we say, "I've got the ocean figured out. I've got God figured out. I've got this thing called church, the Bible, everything figured out." And then God says, "Can you lift your eyes up and look at the ocean?" And then he said, "Let it go." If we want to know the answers to these 3 questions, we need to start here. Knowing God's will starts by being willing to just know his heart. And how does God display his heart in the big story? Take a look at these 3 things mentioned just in the first couple of verses. If we want to understand that this is not just a romance story about 2 lovely people that come together from 2 different lands, that is nice. It's beautiful. Love it. But let me remind you that you and I, Ruth and Boaz, are part of a bigger story that God is in control of. When he said, "Let there be light," he said, "Let there be light." When Adam and Eve gave in to temptation, he promised and assured us of a coming Messiah. And here he gives us another glimpse of that promise. We are introduced to a man named Boaz. Who is Boaz? Well, let me go to the genealogy of Matthew to give us a bit of a clue as to what is going on from God's perspective. Matthew 1, the snapshot, the summary of God's story. Through his ordinary people, we find verse 5, Salmon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Oh my goodness. Now let's get a bit messy. Whether she was the direct mother of Boaz, that is a tangent we don't need to go into. The reality is she was part of Boaz's family line. And here we have in this story a Canaanite woman most likely forced into prostitution against her will in a city called Jericho that was about to be surrounded by God's people, God's chosen holy people who were about to walk around it for a couple of days, yahooing, bring out some brass, because brass is good for God's people, right? And then the walls come tumbling down, except for a few people. That's scandalous in itself that someone would be saved and redeemed from that city. But God amps it up again, my friends, and he says, you know what? That family is going to be joined into my big family. And lo and behold, in the midst of the season of Judges where everyone is doing whatever they want, along comes Boaz. That's Boaz. Now we're introduced to this statement again, which we can easily read over. Boaz, and then we have Ruth the Moabite. Who are the Moabites? If you thought the story of Jericho had its controversy and dysfunction, let me draw your attention to Genesis 19, which is taking family dysfunction to a whole new scandalous level that makes our white Western brains very confused. The story of Lot, in his exit from Sodom and Gomorrah, we know it. God sends him out, his wife looks back, she's turned into salt. He's left up in the mountains in a cave with his two daughters. It's not a good scenario. They should get on with living their life and being obedient to the law, but the daughters come up with a particularly not so helpful strategy. The daughters get their father drunk. They lay with their father and they both become pregnant. My goodness. The older daughter had a son and she named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites of today. Ruth, the Moabite. Are we getting this? Are you feeling this? This is not safe. This is not comfortable. This is not boy meets girl. Both boys were, and the girl was part of a nice Christian family. Mum and dad went to church. They dressed nicely. They did the right thing. They didn't have sex before marriage. They went to a Christian school. They went to a Christian university. They stayed in youth group. This is not what we get. Guys, This is messy. This is really, really dysfunctional at its absolute core, and yet this is God's redeeming work and his big story. Whether you like it or not, it's happening. And God, in his sovereignty, is saying this: I am in control. I've got this. That's Ruth. And I finish with one last point. Ruth goes out to glean. This is not just any ordinary task. This is a picture and a reminder of God's social welfare for his people. In our brains, in our hearts, we love that all were equal. In fact, I think we struggle with the reality that why some people are rich and some people are poor. Wouldn't it be fairer if there was a system where everyone was the same and had all the same amount of money? No one should be a trillionaire, right? It's got to the point where money is just so ridiculous that it is beyond control getting our heads around. And yet, listen to the heart of God. In the midst of all that, he saw it from the very beginning. We as humans cannot figure out social systems that everyone is looked after the same. God did. He saw it. He knew what we were going to do. And immediately he set up a system which you and I are operating in, and we don't even realize that God was the one that set it up. Leviticus 19. When you reap a harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Do not go over your vineyard a second time, or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for the poor and for the foreigner. I am the Lord your God. Even then, God saw the reality of our broken social system. Jesus himself told us what? You will always have the poor around me. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor, to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of the sight of the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour. God is in control of this story. In those 3 verses, there is great assurance. Don't miss God in this story. Therefore, I have a question for us then. If God is sovereign, if God is in complete control from beginning to end, on the cross, it was sealed, signed, sealed, delivered, won for us. Then what do we do with the reality of this statement? As it turned out, Ruth ended up in Boaz's field. Or as other translations say, as luck would happen. Just happened to land in this church. Of all the places that we bumped into these people, of all the churches, of all the holidays, etc., we want to share stories of all the places. We've got them. Our life is filled with these as it turned out moments. God is in all things, but do we have a say in that story? I was born in a Christian home. 4th of 5 children, dad, Uniting Church pastor. Travelled from different places, but on the Gold Coast was my last place at home. Finished year 12, no idea what I wanted to do with my life. As it happened, my dad received a flyer for a campsite in Cooma. He literally dropped me off with mum and dad to Cooma. Never met these people. They stayed for an hour and then continued on their holiday. I'd never gone to any other church in my life. As it happened, everyone on the campsite went to the local Baptist church. I used common sense. That looks good. Let's go. I stayed there for 3 years. That job became redundant. I needed a job. I needed income. I had no idea what to do with my life. No qualifications. I used common sense. The only thing I know what to do is campsite work. So I applied for a campsite job. I got a job in the Hawkesbury, Western Sydney. I arrived in my green Toyota Camry, literally with a washing machine in the back of the car, with no accommodation lined up. Knew no one, no family, nothing. You want to talk about a foreign land? That's a foreign land for me. Common sense said, okay, Lord, I have no idea what to do, but the only thing I know I need is community. So I rocked up on my second week to a church called not South Coast Life Chat, that's coming. I turned up to a church called Hawkesbury Valley Baptist Church. As it happened, there was a pastor there named Mark Chappell, and he became my mentor for 15 years. But as it happened, there was someone else that came to church that very same night.
Is that on? Yes. I didn't meet him on that very first night. So, at the same time, I was in the church. So I grew up in church. My mum worked in the office. At the age of 18, I took on the kids club with 50 kids in this church. I was doing lots, but I knew that it was 20 at the time. It was time to change. I'd done some church shopping. My friends went to different churches. I tried out their churches. I'm like, well. Anyway, there were a few other things going on, and I went, well, do you know what? I think my siblings had all left. I was the only one out of the four that was still going to church. And I was like, well, they're off having a fantastic time. They're loving life. And here I am, helping, doing things, being exhausted, all of that stuff. And I went, I think that this is ridiculous. And I think I'm just going to not go to church anymore. I think that's just my decision, God. And that's where I'm going to sit. Anyway, so I'm laying on the lounge on a Sunday night, meant to be going to church. I think I was on a job that night as well. And I'm like, whatever, they can just deal with it. I'm just not going. Laying on the lounge. And I need to just let you know. So in my head, I hear my own voice. I know that might sound crazy to some people, but I hear my own voice. And there have been times when I hear God's voice, and it's completely different. So I'm laying there. I'm laying there, and I hear God's voice say, you need to get up right now, and you need to go to this church. So I'd actually been to Hawkesbury Valley Baptist Church for a concert a few months earlier. And I didn't know anyone there. But God said, you need to get up, and you need to go there tonight. Up you get. And I could have said no. I went, oh, that's not my voice. That's the voice of God. I better get up and actually do this. So I did. I was running late. As like 20 minutes late. Lots of excuses to have just not gone in at all. As I got out of my car, a lovely couple, they were getting out of their car, they were running late. They ran late all the time. They probably still do. And I sat with them. I talked to them in the car park for a while, and then walked into church probably like 35 minutes, like really. And yeah, talked to them. They were just really encouraging, welcomed me in, and that is, God just started changing my heart and my, working on me. And I didn't actually meet Josh. That was the Jan. So we started going to church in January. We actually didn't meet each other until, was it October? Yeah. So there's a lot, Anyway, but God had a lot to do with both of us before,
Yep.
more. There's more if you need to hear more, but you don't need to hear more.
The point is, the end story is that he joined us together. That's another story in itself. But the point is, we weren't going to church for a partner. We're going to church because we had learnt over the years, common sense, the Spirit of God, if you want community, go where God's people gather. And we responded out of that. It was a choice. And yet God is good and God maps that all out. God is part of sovereign over that, but we still have a choice. Don't live your life, que sera, sera. Whatever. A belief in the sovereignty of God is not determinism. It is not that everything's already mapped out and we are just robots going to church doing what He wants us to do. My friends, you are not pawns that are arbitrarily moved on a divine chessboard. We are not puppets controlled by the string of the master puppeteer. This is a paradox. It is a juxtaposition. We get it. It is one of the realities that God is sovereign and in control, and yet we have real choice. We are moral beings. We have responsibilities. The providential care of God does not override human decision or human action. God's providential care is expressed through the outworking of our free human choices and decisions and responsibilities. We're going to figure that out this morning? No, we've got to sit in that. It's big. Salvation secured, but we call to work on our salvation with fear and trembling. Wait a minute, I thought perfect love casts out all fear. Woo! Remember the water? Stop trying to hold the ocean in your hands. Give glory to the one who created the ocean. Life appears to be, as Naomi and Ruth and Boaz, Deanna, myself, you included, appears to be lots of stories of a jumble of unconnected threads that you just happened to come upon. So my question then is this: if we do have a choice, if you are not a puppet, if I have a choice to be part of God's sovereign plan for my life and His story, then what is it that I'm going to do with what is currently before me? 1 Thessalonians reminds us that it is God's will that you should be sanctified. His desire is that we are holy people, living a life that is pleasing to Him and bringing glory to Him in everything that we do. Let me tell you how Ruth does it, and maybe an encouragement to us. Ruth, her name means friend, companion, a compassionate friend. Ruth is seen and known by Boaz and the community as someone that is of noble character. How does she do that? Look at the way she takes initiative. She doesn't ask Naomi what to do. There's a problem. They're foreigners. They're grieving. They're widows. Do something. Get on with your life. Get on with your day. She doesn't ask Naomi to come and help. She respects Naomi's position. She's elderly. She's bitter. She's journeying in a different season. She says, I'll go out today. You stay. She seeks the favour of the people around her, trusting that God, who she placed her trust in, will take care of her. She works hard all day. This is not a glamorous story of walking into your God-given purpose job that is most amazing. The equivalent of what she did for an entire day was collecting cans. That's it. Anyone collect cans this week? Yeah. They just stash away there, go get some 10 cents later. This is not glamorous. And yet notice her heart. Notice the way she does this. After a hard day's work, she brings home the equivalent of 22 litres of food for her mother-in-law. I think we're in a generation where we don't even want to do a 4-hour shift. A young woman cheerfully labouring for her aged parents is far happier than a fashionable lady spending in idleness and dissipation the fruits of the industry of her ancestors. Our generation looks, you know what? Our parents have got that. I want it now. And now Ruth is modelling to us, you know what? It's not glamorous. Life is hard and we need to put in the hard yards of work. And what does she do in the midst of working really hard? She is nothing but grateful. She shows selflessness. She eats what she needs but saves food for her mother-in-law. And then she listens to Boaz and Naomi's wisdom. Wow! How many of us want to take the advice of our mother-in-law? I'll take that as a quick survey. Good. Yet the humility to recognise and posture yourself as a foreigner to say, what would you do in this situation? That's beautiful. So that's Naomi, Ruth. And then Boaz. Oh, good, Boaz. A man, his name means strength. And my goodness, does he show what it means to be a man of strength. He had every opportunity to be the typical man in this situation, and yet he shows kindness. He shows protective language. He shows that the Spirit of the Lord is well and truly within his heart. My goodness, who rocks up to their workplace and says, the Lord be with you? Pete, you going to do that in the staff room this week? All right, good luck. Your teachers will... But here, he's unashamed of who he is. It oozes out. That's his love of his, that is his priority, obedience to the ways of the Lord. How do we also know this? Why? He is doing exactly what God commanded in Leviticus 19. The patterns and behaviours of a man of God following the instructions of the Lord in every aspect of his life. Boaz is a man of great wealth. He is a man of great strength and standing in the community. But what stands out is his display of the character of God. His dignity and his care. I love that he says to his workers, don't you dare touch her. And it is not in a demeaning way like she's a damsel in distress. Note that he does not tell Ruth to go home and I'll bring the food for you. He tells her, stay on my field, do the work, because I know and believe that's your heart's desire. You can do it. I believe and entrust that to you. But I will provide for you and I will protect you. Our world wants muscular, wealthy men in suits to hand out roses and say, that's the man. How about we be men of kindness? That our words are gentle, loving. How about we be men of faith? That we lead by example. How about we be men that seek to provide but not solve? And always protect what is true, honourable and sacred. How is God guiding us? He is guiding us through the obedience of the ordinary people. Go out to glean, my friends. If you're wanting something more glamorous than that, let's have a conversation, but I'm going to tell you, go out to glean. God guides us through changing circumstances. We're all surrounded by death, new towns, new people, new jobs, shifting, changing circumstances. You didn't choose it, it happens. God guides you through that. God guides us through the supernatural. And God guides us through the wise counsel and common sense of his people. In all of this, in all of his sovereignty, remember this. God's in control and he promises you this. Psalm 32, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you.